Hey, everyone. Today we're going to talk about a sticky tech topic, specifically what I call software glue. I'll get more into what I mean and all the need to know information I want to share in this episode today. But a little backstory on how I discovered some nuances specific with software glue. When I was putting together my interconnected system for my business, Your Tech and More, as far as my website, all the back end tools to support my website, my automations and triggers, etc., that needed to happen on the website, and other pieces of my system in general, like to do with email automations or web form submissions, stuff that would come in automatically into my ecosystem, and also stuff like emails, etc., email campaigns that I would initiate myself that would literally go out. All of that stuff comprised, and still does, my ecosystem that helps to run my business, Your Tech and More. And so when I was designing all that, I wanted to be very modular, where I would take individual systems like the website builder and host, which is, in my case, a self-hosted WordPress website. That's where all that infrastructure is built. And then I wanted to use individual, to help save money primarily, individual tools that were not necessarily directly supported within the individual platforms that I subscribe to. Either that I have a paid subscription in, or that I utilize a free version of various tools and services. And so, to go along with the self-hosted website, I utilize Cognito Forms. I utilize my CRM of choice is called Mooseend. And so that's just kind of a starter set of three that I'll start with today, that I'll focus the information I present in this episode on. But it can be, and it is for me, a lot more elaborate than just those particular pieces. And likely it is for you as an online business owner and entrepreneur, where you have a whole bunch of different things that need to communicate. So, as I say, back to the story. When I was putting together the system, the overall system, I was having problems with, I had particular tools that I wanted to use, but they weren't directly, or what's called natively, integrated in with some of those tools. And so at the start of all this, my learning and exploration and setup, things didn't seem to make sense. I mean, I couldn't directly connect applications, have things communicate, have things be automated and trigger and take some sort of an action all on its own. I couldn't figure out initially of how to do that. That's when I stumbled on this concept of what I call software glue. There's infrastructure, there's technology, web technology, that supports the need of this. And so we'll be getting into exactly what that means. So when I was setting all this up, I was gradually learning about software glue. I was learning about how to make the choices of which services to use. And so I built a repertoire that I'm going to be sharing with you today, some of that knowledge on software glue, and to help educate all of you to make the appropriate choices, either for yourself, if you're a developer, to put together your ecosystem so that these interconnected apps can speak to one another and set off automations, or whenever you are intelligently talking with your developer or developers that are building out your system. These are some basic technology know-how pieces, namely the software glue, that you need to know about. So that's the premise of this episode, software glue. So this is episode number 4. of the Path Forged with Tech podcast. And I'm your host, Donna Smith. And I welcome all of you YouTube viewers today. A short disclaimer, I'm not affiliated with any of the products, services, or tools that I'll be talking about today, nor are any of them sponsoring me or my business in any way. I only, in this episode, am giving my opinions and experiences by providing education to all of you on this topic. So, let's start this sticky tech topic. First of all, I want to talk about the scope for this particular episode. This is only a basic, rudimentary overview of a rather complex topic. And there are many nuances and things that an implementer needs to know to really handle this topic correctly. And I'm not going to do any of those. I'm not going to be covering any of those complexities. That's a time for a different type of format for education and instruction. And again, this is only a basic overview. So point number one, why do I call this software glue? Well, it really is glue. Glue that a developer puts in place that makes two separate services talk to one another. And they talk to one another as far as communicating information through web technology. It also communicates as far as setting up, establishing triggers. That's where the automation part comes in. And that then lead to particular actions that is defined within this service that's providing the software glue. That's what software glue is to me. So some basics on what and why for this technology. So what it is I'm talking about is a service using web technology, providing automation that connects applications and services to automate tasks and build workflows for your system, your ecosystem. Users create workflows to move information between applications without needing to code. That's one of the great things about this technology, is it's, in most cases, there's no coding actually involved. It's more of a drag and drop builder type interface. This allows for custom design, interconnected ecosystems to be built and crafted out of separate tools. For example, if we're talking about classic tools like ClickFunnels or Cognito Forms. Cognito Forms is a do-it-yourself forms builder. And also, let's talk about Google Drive for the second. Okay, so for all of these tools to be hooked together to communicate and to establish trigger and action sequences. That's what this software glue can perform for the user. This is in contrast, say, to larger platforms that are in the marketplace now, like Go High Level, where multiple already compatible within their ecosystem, the people who produce Go High Level, they have systems that perform all these different business functions for online businesses, and they're all compatible together, and each of the individual tools are literally hosted and provided to the account holders all within one large ecosystem. And the great thing about a tool set like Go High Level is that you, in most cases, there are some exceptions, but in most cases, you don't need to worry about this software glue that I'm talking about today, because it's not needed very often, because all of those tools are natively integrated into one platform. It's when you go outside of that scope when software glue is necessary. So specifically, when is this used? When the application that you want to connect is not what's called natively supported. It's not natively integrated. In using this technology, you can connect any number of applications together to automatically trigger actions, to actions which actually perform some sort of automation, which implements your workflow. So some examples of some automations are, say, launching a CRM email campaign or automation sequence that you've got defined, adding a new subscriber to your list within your CRM, a specific list within your CRM, or adding a file in your Google Drive account, or doing a, say, within ThriveCart, which is a funnel slash payment processor type format, shopping cart kind of tool. If you do a post-purchase automation sequence within ThriveCart that then links into some other application that you use in your ecosystem. Those are some examples of automations, combination of trigger to action. So basically, let's talk about some implementation options now for software glue. I haven't even gotten yet, and that's coming up next, to really what these services are that I am referring to. So you can go usually two different ways as far as implementing software glue. You can use done-for-you services. The big ones in the marketplace are Zapier. In fact, that's probably number one as far as popularity and functionality that's available within it and compatibility. And then there's also what's called Make. First of all, that was Zapier.com for Zapier. And then the second big one in the marketplace is Make. That's a relatively newer, within the last few years, platform. It's comparable, and it's a heck of a lot cheaper. We'll get into that in a couple of minutes here. In fact, that's on next. So let's talk about a little bit about pricing here and looking at all this. Generally, Zapier is a lot more expensive because you have to sign up for, like you do with most everything in technology in the online world, you have to sign up for some sort of plan, either a free plan or some sort of a paid plan to use it. And that holds true with Zapier and Make and any of the others that are out there. And generally, Zapier is a lot more expensive, and a lot of that is because of their set of features that they have in their paid plans. And we'll get to what those features are in a couple of minutes. But basically, Zapier is more full-featured as far as the variety of functions that their automations can perform for any two or more apps that are in your workflow or your automation that you're defining within the Zapier environment. That's why they warrant having a bigger market share in the software glue space, and they can also then be warranted to be able to charge more for their plans. So if you're comparing Zapier with Make, here's the pricing page for Make. Again, they have a much more generous free plan, and I personally use Make just because of that characteristic right there. But they are in general a heck of a lot cheaper than Zapier. And what's the only really downside with Make is that I have found, at least with the apps that I use for my own business and that I use for clients, is that the set of functions that are available within the Make environment is not quite as rich. You can't quite do as much on the automation front as you can with Zapier. So that's something important to know. So therefore, most builders end up going with Zapier just because everything seems to be more all in one for what you can do. Now, I'd mentioned to you that there were other similar software glue platforms available. And here's just kind of a general Google search that I did, showing you some of the alternatives to Zapier. I'm not the only one out of this list that I'm even rudimentally familiar with is automate.io. And so I don't know, I can't recommend or not any one of these, but it's important to be able to familiarize yourself with these various plans. And then I'll be giving you specific advice as far as how to choose which one ultimately that you want to go with. So, and ultimately your choice of which of these software glue services that you go with ultimately depends on what you want to do, what apps you've got in your ecosystem that you need to use these tools for, and also the functions, the automations that you want to do within your ecosystem. That's the key here as far as ultimately making your choice. The other way that software glue can be implemented for that exchange and automations that we're talking about here is that a developer can write custom code using the application's what's called API interface that services provide nowadays. Usually most of the time it's free to developers to be able to utilize their APIs. And this is a very viable alternative. It does require coding. It requires web programming, and it is the most flexible and also usually free. But again, it requires web coding skills. So that's the other way of implementing software glue to get your applications to communicate together. So the next thing I wanted to discuss is give you a slight vocabulary lesson. All of these various tools, services that I've mentioned thus far have their own particular vocabulary, single words vocabulary that describes the elements, their parts of their plan, the way that and then also the way that you build out your automations in their environment. So you need to be aware per service that you're looking at what their common terms are and also their specific meanings. So some very popular ones are zaps and triggers and actions and inputs. That set of 4 terms come directly from Zapier and from Make. And for your service of choice, you need to study the help site that comes with that service to help understand, have a vocabulary lesson for yourself, and really understand it will really help you understand how to use that service once that you understand their vocabulary. In fact, really for anything in the online technology spectrum, that's an important to do for anyone who's going to implement something for their business, either for themselves or for a client, is to look at the basic vocabulary to help you understand what it is that you need to do and what you can do in that system. So important point in general. So some important plan, let's go back to plans and pricing. Let's talk about a little bit of the important characteristics that distinguish one plan from another. Okay, so first of all, let's look at Zapier, okay? Just because that one is so popular, okay? And so important points that you want to look at are the number. Now, this applies either to a free or paid plan within any of these services. You need to look at the number of triggers and or actions that are allowed for your plan, period. You need to look if what's called webhooks are allowed. Now, webhooks are kind of another coding way. It's not directly API coding, but webhooks are a form of coding that takes an additional step, really, from the more direct plug and play way of defining your automations within these tools. So for some services, you're going to need to use, or your developer is going to need to use webhooks. So it's nice if you're getting a paid plan to be able to rely on webhooks being available. So say, for instance, here within Zapier, their professional plan allows for webhooks and their free plan does not. Okay. You need to find out if multiple trigger action combos are supported per automation. Some automations that you build are quite complex, where there'll be more than one set of trigger and actions that really need to be defined to complete all the communication within your ecosystem. And so it's nice to have a rich set of combinations that can be supported. Another important point is the lag time. What's called lag time. Let's see here. Where is the Zapier make? Where did I put that? Okay, so here's make. Okay, so what I'm referring to is by lag time is the minimum interval time, I call it lag time, between when a trigger comes through the system and when the actual response or action takes place. Now, for instance, here now within Make, one of their paid plans, their core paid plan, has a minimum lag time of 1 minute between that trigger to the action actually taking place. And so that's an important metric if you're doing something that is really time sensitive. Now, I personally, as a designer, using these systems, I have never personally had to really worry about that, provided that it's not, say, a half an hour or something that it takes for that processing to occur. Most of these services will be anywhere between 1 minute all the way up to, say, 10 minutes. Now, that 10 minutes has to do with a free plan that I've seen. So lag time can be important if it's something that needs to be on a quick turn note. So that's an important metric in your overall choice. So a basic guide that I want to share to really close out this episode, a guide on how to implement with this technology. So what I recommend is that you start with a graphical definition of what it is that you want to do. What you want to do as far as the applications communicating with each other and the different automations that you ultimately want to implement. And with detailing all the different apps that are involved in your workflow that define the individual automations, and then also map out the individual operations within those apps that you want to do. It can be a little time consuming, but it's a great headache saver. It's also a way to reduce your costs as far as if you can get by with doing simpler automations within your system, you won't have to pick a pricier plan to accomplish what it is that you're doing. So that's one of the reasons why I recommend literally mapping out what it is that you want to do. Get everything documented on paper or electronically with a free tool, and breaking it down into specific functions that you need, and then find out if you need to have single or multi-step automation sequences, all that kind of thing. And then write all that, literally get that written out. That will make things a lot easier for either you or your designer when this stuff needs to actually be implemented. Make the plan selection and then actually get in and implement things. And then another initial step is to find out if the set of applications that you want to hook up are connected natively. In other words, that they're just automatically supported within your environment. If it's not, then you got to worry about this tools like Make and Zapier. So that native support has to do with both if the tools themselves, the services are directly supported, and then also the automation functions that you want to use, if they're also supported. If everything that you need is natively in there, you don't need to worry about software glue. That's the bottom line here. Otherwise, you need to identify which or a service like Make or Zapier or one of the others that support all the applications and the specific functions that you want to automate with. So that's the key design part. In addition to the graphical design, the other is to identify the service, do a match of your service to your specific functions that you need to automate with. And an important design point here is that all the applications that you're going to set up with your automations, they need to support the same service, which sometimes can limit your choices. So say, for instance, a few years ago, my favorite CRM has always been moosend.com. And up until about a couple of years ago, they did not support Make. They only supported Zapier. And that's one of the reasons why Make is becoming more and more popular. Or, as it becomes more and more popular, more and more service providers, whether we're talking about ClickFunnels, forms builders, CRMs, etc., they're gradually adding more and more choices for these glue services. So more and more, you're going to be seeing services that allow either Zapier or Make, or sometimes some of the other alternatives. The predominant ones in the marketplace, though, are Zapier and Make. So those are the ones, whenever you're looking at your tools that you use, that you want to see for integrations that are supported, if at least one of either Zapier or Make, or preferably both, are supported by that tool. So up until a couple of years ago, Moosend only supported Zapier. And now, hopefully, I'm happy to say that they also support Make. So that's a great thing to have. And so what you do is you basically start by connecting your service tool to your primary application. Say, for instance, if we're talking about Moosend, which is a CRM. That can be a great primary application because a lot of the automation type work needs to be done within a CRM. So that should be a great primary application to start with. And then do your so what you do once that you initiate this is that you do your automation design and hookup to other apps that you're putting into the automation flow. You set all that up within the Zapier or Make design environment. You do a plug-in or like a plug and play, a drag and drop kind of design for the functions that you want to have as part of your automation flow. And you do all that graphically, visually within Zapier or Make. And then once that you define your automation, then the second step is to hook up your second or more applications that comprise that single automation. And you hook all that up and you link everything together. Remember what I said about that all the applications within that workflow all need to support either Zapier or Make or the other alternative that you choose for a service, because of this fact that they all need to talk the same language. They all need to support each other along the same line. So that's kind of the basics there as far as the way that the automations are defined. And some of the applications do a direct support, a direct connect of different types of functions. Others will require the webhook type of connection from application to application. So to close this out, let me just show you just quickly within, say, on the Make side. If you go over to make.com and then go over to their integrations page, look at all of the integrations that they support. Okay, and then also on the Zapier side, if you go to zapier.com/apps, look at all of their huge amount of, and we can load more here, huge amount of applications that can be used with Zapier. So let's, one of my other tools that I use in my ecosystem is Set More for my meeting and appointment scheduling. And so let's pick on Zapier for the minute, okay? And so what you do to start finding applications that you want to use this system with, and then finding out what functions that you can utilize within the automations, you look at a page that's similar to this. What you do is you go over, and again, we're within Zapier, so it's zapier.com/apps is the start location for this. And you just start typing in the field the applications that you want to link together with utilizing the Zapier service. And so if we're talking about using Zapier with Set More, and then we want to also connect in Moosin, which is a CRM. So so this is the page that provides the functionality that Zapier can link those two applications with. Okay, that's what it is I wanted to show on this particular web page. So the functions that you can see, so remember we talked about trigger and action. That's what defines an automation. And so if you have an appointment scheduling, if an appointment say has been updated, you can choose that as a trigger. Again, these are the functions that I'm talking about that comprise the automation. Okay, so if appointment is updated, then we say, for instance, we could run an automation within Moosin, because Moosin supports automations. And so that is the way. And you can also swap apps where if the trigger is happening on the Moosin side and then the action is happening on the Set More side, you can do it that way as well. That's what this swap apps button has to do with. That literally they're swapped of trigger and action. So that's the type of thing that you need to look at. It's this type of thing. Again, we're not within their build environment here, okay? But these are the types of functions that you utilize if you're using Zapier to define your automations, okay? And then over on the other thing I wanted to show is if we're talking about a CRM like Moosand. Remember what I had said about a native supported tool or service? Okay, so if you, like with your particular CRM of choice, mine is Moosand. So for your CRM of choice or any of the other apps or tools or services that you use, you need to go over to start using Software Glue. You need to go over to those and find out, navigate to the integrations page for that service and find out what it is that's natively supported. So if we're talking about Moosand, which is a CRM, these are all, see how we got Zapier that's included here for an example. And then also down here we've got Make. Make is in here too. So okay, see here's Make. Okay, so those are direct software glue that you can basically match anything that's not native in here together in with Moosand. So, but at the same time, these other cards that are listed on this page are natively supported, and so you go ahead and you click on that card, and then you'll get direct information as far as how to directly natively integrate. So it's that type of thing that you need to look at to start your search on finding out if software glue is even necessary for your applications. Okay, and then the last thing that I wanted to show was to do with on the Make side of the house, if we're talking about, again, with Moosand, which is a CRM. And this is a sample of the types of triggers and actions to build automations for Moosand specifically. Moosand as one half or one part of the automation sequence. Okay, these are the triggers that are supported, and these are the actions. Okay, as I mentioned before, in general with Make, their triggers and actions, the functions that are defined in there, these here are literally functions. At least I call them functions that make up your automation sequences. In general, they're not as richly defined as they are within Zapier. So that's, again, for some ecosystems, that's not a big deal. But others, you need to have more functionality. So a lot of times, a designer is forced to use Zapier instead of Make, which leads to a higher price. So that is the content that I wanted to present today on what I call software glue, or that web technology communication interface that allows dissimilar or not all under one platform roof set of applications to actually be able to communicate with each other and allow for automations to happen automatically within your environment that runs your business, that runs your nonprofit, that runs your hobby websites, whatever. However you want to define in an online world your connectivity and automations that save you time, save you work, is software glue that's necessary. So in summary, below this video, you're going to see a series of reference URLs to the various tools and descriptions that were covered today in the episode. And I hope that you've enjoyed learning about the sticky subject of getting non-native applications to communicate together and automate a lot of your work. I feel that this is an important online business owner or entrepreneur technology topic, since you need to be aware of this to correctly set up your interconnected ecosystem of technology to build out your system or systems that run your business, either that you yourself build or whenever you are communicating with your developer that's putting this together. This is important information for you to know about. So please leave a comment below for feedback and questions. I'd love to hear from all of you the way that you use tools like this, or the way that you will be now utilizing Zapier and Make and similar alternatives, and the various setups that you employ or will be employing. I'd love to hear those stories, and I will personally respond to all of your comments that you leave. So in conclusion, I'll be back next Thursday with more content to inspire and provide how-to information to leverage technology in unique and cost-effective ways to be able to grow your business. Again, this is Donna Smith signing off with this episode, and have a great day.